Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're not just running through another sports bio. No, we are unpacking a cinematic story. It's about immense, generational talent slamming headfirst into some of the absolute cruelest luck imaginable. We're going to examine the staggering highs, the devastating lows, and some incredibly hidden twists in the life of a player you probably thought you knew everything about.
Section 1. A Shattered Dream.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Picture this scene, right? It's October 17th, 2023. A legendary player literally collapses on the pitch. The stadium just goes completely dead silent. He breaks down in tears, hands covering his face as he's carried off on a stretcher. Before anyone could even process what had just happened, it felt like his career, his lifelong dream, the whole shebang, was just shattered in a single tragic second. So, did this devastating moment actually end the career of the guy they called the next Pelé? The man who won absolutely everything at the club level, but was brutally denied the one trophy the world demands of our Brazilian legend? Well, we're going to piece together his journey and stick around because I promise you, I'm going to reveal a massive, totally unpredictable twist about the 2026 World Cup that you probably haven't heard yet. But to really understand the end, we got to go back to the beginning.
Section 2. From Poverty to Pelé.
Let's flash back to February 5th, 1992 in the deeply impoverished streets of Mogi das Cruzes, Brazil. Now, Neymar didn't learn to play on pristine, perfectly cut grass. He learned on unforgiving concrete and these incredibly tight, cramped futsal courts. And actually, that lack of space, that forced him to develop unparalleled ball control. His totally mesmerizing dribbling style wasn't just talent, it was literally a survival skill birthed in the narrow alleys of his hometown. And the pressure he faced growing up was just immense. His family was so poor that all of them slept in a single room. His father, who was a former player whose own career kind of stalled out, basically placed all his unfulfilled dreams squarely onto his son's shoulders. He became his coach, his agent, his financial manager, a dynamic that, as you might guess, would later cause massive friction. The family even sold their only car just to afford his youth tournaments. But here is the massive curiosity gap. At just 11 years old, Real Madrid comes knocking with a huge offer. And his family said no. They wanted him to build his name in Brazil first. Crazy, right?
But, that massive gamble actually paid off. By 2009, he makes his professional debut for Santos FC. That's the exact same club where Pelé became a god. The pressure was unimaginable. By 2010, he actually rejects Real Madrid again. And then, by 2011, at just 19 years old, he leads Santos to the Copa Libertadores title, which is South America's biggest trophy, and he's crowned South American Footballer of the Year. Boom. His rapid, high-pressure ascent was complete. Europe was waiting.
So in 2013, he finally makes the jump to Barcelona. But there was a dark reality happening completely off the pitch. The transfer fee that was officially announced and the actual money exchanging hands, those were two very different numbers. This sparked a massive scandal. It led to a Spanish court case, the resignation of Barcelona's president, and severe tax fraud charges placed squarely on the shoulders of a 21-year-old kid. Suddenly, the pressure wasn't just about football anymore. It was legal, it was financial, and it was incredibly heavy. Yet, on the field, pure, unadulterated magic. He formed the terrifying MSN trio alongside Lionel Messi and Luis Suarez. They became arguably the most lethal attacking force in football history. In 2015, they conquered absolutely everything, winning the treble. We're talking La Liga, the Copa del Rey, and the UEFA Champions League, all in one historic season. Neymar was literally on top of the world. But he was also the third biggest star in that trio, and a question started creeping into his mind. Am I always just going to be in someone else's shadow? Section 3. The Golden Cage. That burning desire to escape Messi's shadow and claim the throne for himself. That led to one of the most shocking decisions in sports history in 2017. He wanted to be the main man, but in doing so, he walked straight into what a lot of people now call the Golden Cage. Paris Saint-Germain activated his release clause for a staggering, jaw-dropping 222 million euros. It's the number that changed football forever. To put that into perspective, to this day, it remains the absolute world record for a transfer fee. Neymar instantly became the most expensive player in history. He finally had his own team. But as it turns out, money and status couldn't buy locker room peace. The very same year Neymar arrived at PSG, a young French prodigy named Kylian Mbappé burst onto the scene. And the locker room quickly turned incredibly toxic. Factions formed. Petty disputes over, who got to take penalty kicks or free kicks. They escalated into all-out media wars. The press perfectly labeled it, two kings, but only one throne. His life at PSG was rapidly becoming a nightmare.
Section 4. A broken body.
Now, what's really interesting and tragic is that the deepest wounds weren't inflicted in the press or the locker room. They happened right there on the pitch. The physical toll his body took over the next decade is genuinely difficult to comprehend. He became the victim of what fans started calling the World Cup curse. It became this undeniable, brutal pattern. 2014, in his home country of Brazil, a horrific challenge fractures his vertebrae right before the semifinals, leaving him crying on a stretcher while his team suffers that humiliating 7-1 defeat. 2018 in Russia, ankle surgery right before the tournament. 2022 in Qatar, another devastating ankle injury, ending with him in tears on the pitch. And finally, that October 2023 match we started this explainer with, a completely torn ACL and meniscus. Every single time he reached the sport's biggest stage, his body brutally gave out.
And that 2023 ACL tear, it seemed like the final nail in the coffin. He had just signed a massive €90 million contract with the Saudi club Al Hilal. But because of the injury, over the span of 17 months, he managed to play exactly 7 matches. 7. He spent almost all his time alone in the gym or the hospital. The club's manager publicly stated he couldn't perform at his previous level. And so, in January 2025, they mutually terminated his contract. The most expensive player in the world was walking away entirely empty-handed.
Section 5, 2026, one last chance. Everyone thought it was completely over. I mean, who wouldn't? But Neymar wasn't finished. In a stunning turn of events, he made this emotional, deeply symbolic return home. He went back to Santos FC, the very club where he and Pelé started the whole journey. Pelé's own daughter reacted to the news by saying, "My father must be doing bicycle kicks in heaven, hearing that our boy is coming back home." Isn't that just deeply touching? Neymar himself said he has given absolutely everything he has to the sport, and he's just grateful to be back on the pitch. But the story doesn't end with a quiet retirement in Brazil. So the crucial point is this ultimate, totally unpredictable twist. Despite battling constant muscle injuries upon his return, despite literally all the critics screaming that he was done, Brazil's national team coach, the legendary Carlo Ancelotti, absolutely shocked the footballing world. He officially selected Neymar for the 2026 World Cup squad. Let that sink in. After a 2-year absence and a career seemingly in absolute ruins, Neymar is going back to the world's biggest stage. And we absolutely cannot forget why this matters. 79 goals. That is how many goals Neymar has scored for the Brazilian national team. He has officially surpassed the great Pelé to become Brazil's all-time top scorer. Yet, despite that historic milestone, he is still desperately hunting for that one elusive World Cup trophy that truly validates a Brazilian legend. So I want to leave you with this provocative question to ponder. Did Neymar fulfill his ultimate potential? Some might look at the injuries, the controversies, and say no way. But when you look at a man who rose from sleeping in a single room with his family, to wearing the most expensive target on his back, to having his body broken time and time again, only to keep rising back to his feet, you kind of have to admit, he fell many times, but he never truly gave up. If you found this explainer fascinating, hit subscribe because in our next explainer, we are going to unpack the untold hidden chapters of Lionel Messi's story. You definitely won't want to miss it.